Moi gave us free milk. Kibaki gave us free education. Uhuru, well, he gave us laptops, allegedly. I've never seen any of those laptops. And Ruto, well, I'm looking forward to what he's going to give us. If you haven't gotten the gist of it, we are talking education and intersecting it with technology. So we'll go straight into it. I have a few history and philosophy buffs here. So we'll start with what is the philosophy of education? Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
And you?
It's so interesting because if you look at education as we know it, it has been in existence perhaps 200 years max.
Yep.
Probably driven by industrial revolution and need to produce skilled laborers for the factories, companies, etc. But prior to that, education was more of a luxury or something you take when you want to. If you think of, let's say, like Alexander the Great, his father would take him to Aristotle, then he will take you to somebody else to learn the skills for diplomacy and etc. So education was not a necessity.
Yep.
If I was a farmer, I just need to know how to farm. That's it. I don't need to bother myself with reading, writing, and all kind of thing. So it's industrial revolution that brought what we know as the education. And what became as what was previously 844, well, apparently was invented in Germany by Frederick the Great. He said, like, you need 8 years of basic education, which was compulsory, and he forced everyone, and then 4 years of some high school education, and then 4 years of optional education to that. But university education had existed for a very long time, thousands of years. But it came from a perspective that you're a lover of knowledge.
Okay.
You're not necessarily learning for that particular case. And if you look at the German example, it's because also the German army needed skilled people in the army. So that's my take on education philosophy, and I'll go back to Professor Wajakoya.
Wajakoya.
He said, education starts at home. It's the primary responsibility to teach your kids. When they go to school, education is the primary responsibility of the parent, which means you have to do like some form of homeschooling.
Yeah.
And then the school complements that. But it's the opposite. We leave the schools to do everything.
Yeah, when you touched on knowledge, now that's where I feel like now we're on the right track, because before, I think education existed as a form of knowledge transfer. It wasn't structured, but now institutions have had to make it structured because we moved into the Industrial Revolution where certain skills were needed and we had to narrow down on what could be taught. Previously, you could learn, and for example, the example you gave of Alexander the Great, he could learn anything he wanted from all the teachers available. And if you look at all the cities, all the great cities that have existed in the past, how do you build a city? You have a strong university. You have a strong center of knowledge that attracts thinkers.
Yep.
That's all it does, just attracts thinkers. They come, they settle, their families settle with them, and then you build. That's why even when it comes to building smart cities, if you do not have a large, either tertiary or non-tertiary institute that promotes knowledge, not just education, because there's a huge distinction for me between the two. Education is a construct.
Okay.
It is because exactly who determines what should be studied?
Yeah, okay, I see when you say that.
Yeah, so that's a construct. And it's a construct that's owned by government or bodies in power or monarchies or whoever who's in charge of whatever region that is. But knowledge transfer, I can transfer my knowledge to anyone and it's not controlled by anyone.
Yeah. But I see, okay, in the long run, still, we look at how education was transferred, as you're saying. It still went down to, okay, which family were you born in, or which type of economic activity are your people, whatever economic activity the people you're living around are doing. For example, if your family members are, in the priesthood, I'm just thinking, you'd obviously be forced to, to learn whatever, priests do, that type of knowledge, yeah? If you, I guess catechism and all that. And if you're if you're born in a monarchy, you're forced to learn geography, wars, the history of wars and all that. So I think it still depends, what family were you born in and what you're forced to learn.
Did then education break that?
But you see, that's the thing, like tertiary. It's like, let's say if your father was a butcher, then you learn different types of cows, how to cull the calf, whatever for that, right? Then there is this broad knowledge. I want to know about war. I want to learn languages. I want to know about stars. So that's knowledge. It's not, I think that's a skill, like a butcher is a skill. And then there is knowledge, understanding the world, languages, people, etc.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting philosophies you have here. I guess for me, just a question. So something like, say, tech. Is tech education or is it knowledge?
It's education.
It's wow.
I think about, have you ever sat down and thought about, like, for example, how do I create a faster computer, right? So, okay, so if you look at, let's say, for example, programming, that's a skill. That's an education. You need to learn how to program. But if you take yourself out of just programming and think about how do I make faster computer, how do I make like quantum computing and all those things that bring about new computing types, methodologies, blah, 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 blah. That's our knowledge. You've separated yourself from a skill. I think a skill or education is something you need to use daily, something that you have to do daily. Knowledge, on the other hand, is something that's likely to change something. It has a much more broader perspective.
Interesting. You are of the opposite opinion.
Tech is knowledge, in my opinion. As an education, personally for myself,
Can it be both?
it can be both. But as an education, I think it fails. It failed me personally. Yes, I had a good time in university. I enjoyed my undergrad.
Yeah, okay,
But
I see what you're
the
saying.
knowledge that I had and the skills which I required after that was like I was just repeating it all over again.
When you went into work.
When I went into work, I was like, I think my first 2 months, because I remember the first day I was told, install this Windows, do this, then you can relax and watch some YouTube. I installed Windows, did all those things quickly. When I went onto YouTube, I was like, the words they were talking, I'm searching those things, I'm like, this was not part of my curriculum.
But you see, there are two problems in that. Number one, if you go into how people learn very at an individual level, right? Like a government is interested in teaching 1 million people. So it not concerns itself with how different people learn. So to try to create a structured way or a standard way how majority of the people can learn. Then second, the government has interest in what, for example, the government will take a skill gap analysis and realize we have few people in computing, people in engineering, that will create a curriculum for those areas where they need people to fit in. Well, do you need that? Do you like it? Now the government doesn't concern itself.
Yeah, it should, but it should keep the content updated. Because you see, the challenge I faced was a lack of updated content.
Oh, yeah.
But then I also feel like the whatever you learn in school and the actual performance of the skill is very different. Like, I mean, it's the same thing in law.
But should it
you
be...
learn the history, you learn the philosophy and all that,
Yes,
the concept, but the reality is whatever is done in practice.
For me, in campus, definitely you're still learning C, C++, PHP, Pascal, absolutely get that. And that's completely not right. What I love about university, it helps you think from first principles. It teaches you everything from the concepts. It doesn't teach you the skill you can take and apply for that. Like, I think all the mathematics, all the physics was important so that if you look at a computer, you just look at it as a device. You understand the components that works for it. Now, if you need to go repair a computer, then you need another skill or you need another thing. And in some cases, when you need to solve a problem, it could be important to start thinking from the first principles of it. So I don't think universities, I think that universities are great from first principles. Because when you're teaching about the history of something, it won't change for the next 50 years.
So you should be taught to quickly and get it over with. I feel like
the
my content
reality
could have been
I feel
squeezed.
In Kenya we're yet to actually
2.5 years or 3 years.
But that's why you have the likes of Moringa School, coding schools, where they're like, I need to learn about Node.js. That's what my employer
My
needs.
immediate need.
My immediate
Awesome.
need, yeah.
Cool. That was really clear. Thanks for your inputs on that. So now we're marrying education and technology. Okay, then we come up with this EduTech. Okay, anyone wants to give a definition of what EduTech is? And for me, education is like, having young children, it's not all about the content. There's just so much around education. I like how you quoted Wajakoya. I am a big believer, education does start at home. So yeah, I'd like us to delve into what is the definition of EduTech.
I think I'd get the definition slightly wrong, but
It's okay.
yeah,
It's knowledge.
It's okay. It's knowledge.
Knowledge reassuring.
Yeah. So I look at EdTech as the use of technology to in any way enhance or improve or change the education system, whether this is in content, infrastructure, medium, channel, whichever way. That would constitute EdTech for me.
Awesome. Chris, do you have anything else you wanted to chip into definition? Or?
Yeah, I think education is education. Technology, I think it's just a supplementary thing to help people learn, read, understand things. So it's just the application of technology to help people do whatever they're already doing thousands of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a tool to aid education, basically.
Yeah. Do we have knowledge tech? YouTube.
You have to go back to what
TikTok.
knowledge is, right? And to me, I think the way, for example, let's say maybe you read several things, you experience different things, and then you sit down and then you make a connection, which no one teaches you.
Yes.
I think that's knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you look all of a sudden like, oh wait,
An epiphany.
yeah, an epiphany.
Yeah.
I think that's
So would
knowledge.
you say, you know what
And
I
it should
always
be
wonder
permeable.
about? What
Yeah.
I always wonder about, like the guys who, like Albert Einstein or whoever who invented the first, programming language or whoever. Would you say that's knowledge or, is that an epiphany or like how did they ever get to that point? Yeah.
Let me give you a good example.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing any machine learning class and everyone wants to learn about machine learning and AI, it came from a very simple thought. About Alan Turing.
Mm-hmm.
So Alan Turing was put together with some other scientists to try and break the German communication code called the Enigma machine. So they built this machine to help them do some calculations. And as the calculations became more complex, they started building bigger machines. And at some point, he sat down and realized, as the problem becomes more complex, at some point we will need a whole field.
Yeah.
Yes. I think he thought like, in humans, when a problem becomes complex, our heads don't become bigger.
Yeah.
It's just the way. Then he asked himself, can machines think? Yeah. Then everyone was like, yeah. This approach of just increasing the capacitors and transistors is not. We can find a way.
It was brute force. You can't keep brute force.
It was brute force. Then it's like maybe we can figure a better way of utilizing the small thing to happen. That was the birth of machine learning. And it's like, how do we reuse this machine? How do you make it think? Then now you get into the details.
And make connections as well.
Yeah. So that
was a practical birth. I think there was a pre-birth.
Now that epiphany is that created that knowledge that actually machines can think. We can make machines a bit smarter than that. So to me, that's the knowledge.
So about 100 years before then, I've forgotten her name. She was the first lady to actually write code.
The first person,
Yes.
not first lady.
The first
Actually,
person.
first
Yeah,
person.
sorry, I've forgotten her name, yes.
Yeah.
So, there was, you see, her and other scientists and mathematicians eventually, throughout their shared knowledge and experiences, came up with this knowledge. Then it was made practical a few hundred years later, and it keeps changing. That's why I love the idea that knowledge is permeable.
Yes.
Education sometimes pushes us to think knowledge is not permeable. I remember when I was in class 5 or 6, then I saw on CNN Pluto is no longer a planet. And I've gone to school, and my science teacher is about to hang me for saying that. I'm like, there are 8 planets now. I've seen it on CNN. I'm keeping up to date. I'm like, and we had this, and they finally asked me, what are you going to put down as the answer in my book?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And I told him, in your book, I will put 9, but I know it is a lie. Somehow, I don't know if Pluto came back, but it's finally out now. But that's
it's
the
a
beauty of
moon.
yeah. But now,
It's a moon.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's I'm on an asteroid by now. It's really tiny,
Interesting. I have learned. You've given me your knowledge, guys.
which could change. And
It
that's
could
the beauty of
change.
knowledge.
Okay, and I should be okay. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. What problems we've defined EdTech, and thanks for making that differentiation between like there's no knowledge tech. What problems do you think? Because EdTech is big. EdTech is big in the continent. What problems are they solving for in the continent, in Kenya, with this technology? Because there's a lot of them, as you mentioned. There's people doing content, there's some doing the infrastructure, the management system, some edtech focused very much on, like, STEM. What problem are they solving for?
I think generally in Africa, the first problem you always have is access.
Accessibility.
Yeah, because textbooks are expensive, and also certain content are not available if you don't go to certain schools. So I think on the content side, our companies are taking that content, putting it on SMS or apps, and then which you subscribe maybe 20 shillings, and then now you can get access to that content. So I think that's the lowest.
So just a question. Sorry to bring you guys back to the education philosophy. Do we need education or do we need knowledge? If like my father was a farmer and I'm being forced to go into, like at the moment, EdTech, we are seeing the layoffs. And I wouldn't recommend my daughter go into like technology right now. Maybe go into is this whole idea of education something that's really been brought by the Western world into Africa? And should we really come back to kind of our roots, doing agriculture, exporting to China? Like seriously, that's
Scrap education, focus on knowledge. It's that simple. It existed. It existed in the past, and it built cities. And
Because-
they say if you read 1,000 books, then you have the history and knowledge of 1,000 people. So, like, I understand the skills or the basic knowledge that's required through education, but at some point that has to stop, and it shouldn't take 16 years.
But
should
how
maybe
can
be-
we in this world, like how can we exist without education? Basically, the fact that you said, the government is forcing you to get this particular skill so that they can ensure that the
They
population
can be able to place you.
they can actually place you whatever in the different industries to do what they want and all that. So
I think there are areas where you need education. Would you like to be operated by a surgeon who never went to medical school?
You would not want, but
Probably.
in that
but if they're the
but you
best,
see, in that medical
if you
school,
find
yeah.
out if you find out that they're the best surgeon and they're actually respected, they never went to any medical school, but they're actually respected.
There's a story,
Maybe
there's a
because
story
of
of
their skill.
a Greek surgeon who practiced his way into learning, and he became one of the best
That's
surgeons
okay.
and brought
You
up
see, the
some
problem is
some
that
of those
how
best
many
practices.
people did he kill along the way before being very?
I'm not too sure, but maybe he was practicing on corpses. He was dissecting corpses to figure out different things and
Absolutely.
his study of anatomy.
Yeah.
So there's a safe way of there's and for now I think you've taken us to the section of professions. And certain professions you'd want someone who's skilled, someone who has gone through a form of training.
Yeah. And
regulation, basically.
One of the things, so what do we need? I think if you have knowledge, you're flexible.
Yeah,
If you have
that's so
education, I am a data
Tunnel
scientist.
vision.
I am a software
Yeah.
developer. So you can't really. That's why when there's a layoffs and you have enough knowledge, you can simply spin something else. Now, when it comes to do we need like people trained specifically in a given area? A good example I love is Japan. They're very big on apprenticeship. It's not necessarily sitting down writing, because education is passing an exam and having a certificate.
Yeah.
So what happens, like if you want to be like cook certain dishes, I don't know, like the government is controlling, you have to be under somebody and you're given certain years, and then after that, that person just writes a letter or that like this person was under me for 3 years and I'm satisfied. I like that kind of knowledge because it's flexible education, let me call it so, right? If you are in a society where you have, I'm a trained teacher, and tomorrow the government no longer needs teachers, then you remember I have nothing else to do. But if you had a wider, let me call it knowledge, tomorrow you're a farmer, nothing happening, you pick a sword, you're a soldier, you go kill.
So the internships that we get.
But you see, also
after
those
university-
soldiers are actually trained for. I mean, before you go to.
Yeah, of course, soldiers,
You
you
are
need
trained.
somebody trained.
Yeah.
But you can see also soldiers, some of them, and in many other countries that have fought wars, after their active duty,
Yeah, you go back.
They go back and do something else.
Okay, sorry, and then sorry I interrupted you with that question around Africa and the need of education versus knowledge. You are talking about problems they're solving for. You said
Access.
access.
I think access is the first problem. I think the second problem, which I haven't seen it much, but I saw it in India. This is a secondary problem. So everyone can read, write, Then the second one is like how to help people learn. So in India, I can't remember the name of this app. What they've done, so every day there's content that your child goes through an iPad, and they track everything that they do that. And they start very early discovering learning disabilities.
Oh, nice.
In a child. And then what happens, they start customizing content that will help the child.
So to improve.
For example, if a child is reading and they realize maybe they're skipping certain words, they're like, oh, it's dyslexic, it's and then they start providing more content. So that's now taking the data, doing some
That's awesome.
work. So that's, I think to me, access and helping people learn or understand people's learning patterns, those are the two major problems that can be solved. And I think in Africa we are poor, but if we are able to get to that level of helping people learn, because some people,
that sounds really good.
Yeah, that would be great. Maybe I don't like sitting in a class for 4 hours, that kind of thing, etc. So that would be, and then I think now the other issues about was it access, like the Zoom infrastructure?
Yeah, the infrastructure. Yeah.
So on and so forth. Those could be other problems. But primarily, I think those are the two areas.
Access and learning. Anything else you can think of?
To add on to his, on the type, because we now have types of learners, and I think that during the pandemic was heavily exposed. Because we took things and just said, all right, same content, same style, put it online on a kid's screen.
Yep.
Then you start noticing, because there are about 7 types of learners, and I'm only remembering visual, auditory, I think those are the only 2 I'm remembering.
Yeah.
So those different types of learners for someone who likes to read and then someone who likes to listen.
Yeah.
For me, when I was in high school, I groomed myself because I realized what kind of a learner I am. I'm the person who, when the teacher is talking, I won't take the notes.
Okay, so you want to listen.
I want to listen. I
And
want
then
to
you're punished
see
for
the
that,
teacher.
right?
I want to see
Like,
the
where are your notes? Why did you write your notes?
So you wanted to see the teacher. And when that class was over, I'd write down the notes I believed existed. And then in the evening, I wouldn't sit down to study what I wrote. I'd go around everybody's desk to see what they wrote on the different subjects they're studying. I'm like, okay, I know that, so I won't bother. So I eliminate. I'm like, I know. I don't know. I'll look at that when I get to my desk. So I had more time to make noise. I had less notes, but the system worked for me. Because that was my learning system.
You're listening.
You've just reminded me of something. It's one of the best things I've ever read off the internet. But this guy called Cesar Hadara. Right nowadays, I think he's a TED fellow or something. So many years ago, he had a blog about knowledge and education. And he had a post called, I Will Learn What I Want. And in that post, he says that knowledge or education is connection. And think about it. The way, for example, I read this book is because it was mentioned in another book.
Okay,
and because
interesting.
This book is recommended by a friend. You tend to remember things that have connections.
Yeah, connection to it, yeah.
So if I go into class that I'm interested in the history of Africa, or let's say the history of my tribe, and then I end up learning the history of Kenya through the history of my tribe, I tend to stick with that knowledge. So other than if I go there and like 10 things that Tipu Tip did when he came to the coast of Africa.
The reality is, if we were given...
I can't even name one.
If you're given the opportunity, I mean, minus whatever world that you're living in, you're just given the opportunity to, do what you want, read what you want.
That's how the education is supposed to be. Yeah. It's supposed to be wake up, what am I curious about?
Yeah.
Is it cooking? And then also another problem is that education all now ended up being segmented into subjects.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like you're a mathematics person, you're a language person. But actually education, it's not supposed to be, it's supposed to be fluid in between. And all the innovations we call is actually when someone...
multiple disciplines. And then you...
I like they call the Leonardo da Vinci. They're just called polymath. Because today he's a mathematician, tomorrow he's an artist. But today, someone won't believe that there's a mathematician who's very good at drawing.
Yeah.
It's like you're either good at
Or a
drawing.
tech person who can dance, or a tech person who's creative. It's like, wow.
Yeah. And now tell me, how will EdTech solve that problem?
Yeah, good.
Like,
good.
remember, the funniest thing when you talked about, people who are really good at their skill, like this famous comedian in Britain, what's this Mr. Bean?
Yeah.
He's actually a dean of engineering in Cambridge or something like that.
Yeah.
So interesting.
I think he got up to PhD level in electrical engineering. I find knowledge interesting when you're exploring. Like today, you get in the house, like, that food smells well. What did you cook with it? Oh, where did spice come from? Do we get these spices from Kenya? No, we import them. Oh, so we get them all the way from so they have to be dried. So you end up learning so many things, which otherwise you're told, like, now agriculture, page 7, you're learning about fertilizer.
Cutting seed to cross plant. What do you call it when you cut a plant and another plant? Grafting.
Grafting helps me in life.
Okay, I didn't do agri.
Okay, for me, because I don't know, we had to do agriculture was compulsory for the first 2 years, so there was things I was learning and I was like, I feel it's not like, it's content I'm being given, I have to consume, and I need it to continue.
In high school, I hated history.
Look at you now.
I never did history. Right now, in my library, 80% of the books are history books. And I read history of everything. I start like the history of spoon. Why is the spoon the way it was? The history of writing. I'm just interested in the history. No, I was interested in how, like, my entry point to history was not how it was introduced in class. For example, I was interested in war, right? Then I learned everything about war with this history. Then I realized during that time people cooked very different types of food. Then I started learning food. Then all of a sudden I understand history way better than how it was taught as a subject.
And you just mentioned there's this guy he has a, I think, TikTok, whatever, Instagram channel, and he talks about history through food. So you talk about Pakistan, whatever. You talk about how they make their food, the reason why they make it like that. Ethiopia, apparently, originally they never used to allow anyone to export the coffee bean, so someone actually hid it in his beard and went and planted it somewhere, and then now it became famous, and now people started using it everywhere. So I mean, it's normally interesting to just learn or get knowledge
from TikTok.
So education. So
from anywhere.
You should be open to it.
From the experiences, because I relate to both experiences. I hated history, dumped history. I actually believe whenever something new comes out in tech, first thing I usually say, that's a lie. When I became a buzzword, I was like, that's a lie. You go back, oh my goodness, this thing is 60 years old, in practice maybe, but hundreds of years old in theory. And you're like, and why are we calling it new? It's not new.
Yeah, interesting.
You start appreciating history.
Okay, and I know you guys especially will start going on this.
Okay.
I know where you're going.
I was just about to say, like, blockchain and crypto. It's almost like 15 years old.
Actually, it's crypto that's about 60 years old.
Yeah, and it's like we have
digital currencies,
concepts, betting,
papers have been about digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. You see, the idea was there, the knowledge was there. Then we needed the infrastructure. We needed computers that could do all these computations at that speed. We needed that level of encryption to protect all these things.
That's why it's very great to read and understand everything from the first principle.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah, because of like, crypto is just money in a computer.
Like M-Pesa.
It's just like M-Pesa.
But you believe in M-Pesa. You don't believe in your crypto wallet.
Michael, I just want to come back to something you said very interesting, which I did experience when COVID hit and the kids, like school at that time, when COVID hit, school was non-essential, I guess. Because they closed schools. It was like interesting. So you're telling us it's non-essential, but then it's been forced down our throats for so many years. And I remember Nicola, who's now my 7-year-old, as you said, they put the classroom into a Zoom class. And it used to be so hectic, just trying to figure out how to get 4-year-olds to work Zoom and not to turn off their mics and put their iPads the right way.
To concentrate the whole
just
time.
concentrate and
You're
like...
at home and they're like, what's that noise outside? Gone.
I remember once she was doing PE in her room on an iPad. I'm like, wait, this
They're at home. The PE will automatically happen.
And I remember her telling me, I don't want to do this anymore. And she quit.
Yeah,
and I
remember?
I remember. And I was like, she quit school. I was like, you quit school.
She quit school, and then I remember we sat and we were like, we're gonna write a paper about.
Yeah, I'm like, actually,
Yeah.
this makes sense. Like, what are we doing? Like, for real. But for me, I'm challenged. Like, I'd love my children to still, like, the world is pushing for education, but I'd like them to be more worldly. How do they compete with tell them, oh, you guys just do whatever you want.
Or guys who are, homeschooling and stuff.
Yeah, you know, there's a school in I think in London. I think I can't remember the name. You can find it on TED, but it's a school with no curriculum.
Oh wow!
You get in the morning to the
Elon
school.
Musk school.
Or Kanye West school.
Or Kanye West school.
You get to school, and if you decide today just want to sit down, that's it. Then, so the bring the school.
But you come and tell your African pride. What did you do? Just sat.
We just
And
sat
thought,
away.
nikafikiria.
So what happens is that the school has all sorts of equipment, whatever you need.
Yeah.
So if today you come in and you're like, okay, I want to try and ride that tractor. Then there's an instructor there who like, okay.
It sounds like a rich people's school, is
Yes,
it?
it is.
Highly like it. These are people who have trust funds, and that's the saddest reality, But I wish it was
At the end of
everyone
the
had
day,
that
if we
opportunity.
compare Alexander the Great,
Yeah.
his father was I think he was like a king before
Yeah,
him.
he was
right?
a king, yeah.
Yeah. So he had the luxury. That's
Yeah.
that's the two. And I can put it down to currently where we are. Yeah. All this Twitter thing about pay interns, right?
Yeah.
And I was telling somebody, there is somebody whose father has money and he can allow him or her.
Not to.
And this guy will say, like, this year is knowledge gathering year. Yeah. I'm okay working different places, not getting paid to gather knowledge.
And that's why people say people who actually benefit in this world situation that we're in, or in the structure, are people who are still well off, yeah?
Yes.
Because you'd be comfortable to take an unpaid internship in whatever, in the UN or in Microsoft, but you see you're interacting with with people with vast knowledge, yeah. But you see, for you're comfortable because you have a place to stay, you have transportation, everyone is paying for you. Yeah. Someone else will be like, I would really want to have that opportunity, but I can't. I cannot.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
And that goes both ways. At the end of the day, whoever has money, and if you look at the history of the world, it's the people who have started having money that like, oh, I think I'll take my kid to a jiu-jitsu teacher for him to learn.
That's so true.
Yeah.
To you, like homework, Wisha.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Right?
Because that's what we put value in. Is like,
Because after that certificate, there's a job and you can take care of yourself.
Yeah. And actually, if you look at even how concepts have been, investigated, learned, researched, and people, like, you see, the pharmaceutical companies and all that, the reason why they've been able to, establish all these drugs, all whatever, medicine, it's because there's someone who's really funded them to investigate or to research or to find out, okay, how best can we reach to, to solve this, to whatever, cure cancer, for example. So there are people who are actually putting money into that. But you see, without money, really, you can't have that luxury to just learn.
That's the sad reality.
Okay, let's bring it home back to Kenya where there's
EdTech.
no money. And we have education, and we have startups doing education through, as you mentioned, different technology. There's SMS, there's apps, there's web. They're figuring out how to do it.
So during the pandemic, I was involved with a startup.
Involved. What was your relationship?
It was a very it's a very intimate relationship. So the startup was called Senti.
Senti.
Yeah, like cent.
Not Sandy.
Oh, Senti.
Senti, like a cent.
Looks like
Money.
you have a type, clearly.
Lord Jesus Christ, come to us. Help your people. Help your people.
Hey, tell us about Senti.
So Senti was a startup started with a friend called Brian. It was to help parents transfer pocket money to kids. So like kids, you send them money, they buy drugs. So
Medicine.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, you thought had drugs?
I'm like, with this rich. Okay, anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
no drugs like changa, busa.
Oh, so had
Weed.
drugs.
You know to get both cocaine. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So he treated like something like looks like a debit card. Mm-hmm. So the parents would send money to that card, and then in the school canteen there is a POS machine. So anytime they want to buy a mandazi, they go swipe.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
For that.
This was in Kenya?
Yes, it existed. I think up to some time this year.
Oh. sorry.
Yeah. Then done some pilots in different schools, in high schools, and then the pandemic hit and schools were closed. And then it's like, how should pivot? So the guy Brand came up with the idea that since the parent has the app to track the usage.
Or the idea, okay, because I wanted to ask you, what problem is it solving?
Number
is it
one,
like the parent wants to track?
number one, you cannot send. You used to send money to a bazaar, and then the bazaar would withdraw it and send it to your child.
Yeah.
Right. Second, you have no control of what your child uses the money for. Now, this card can only be used within the school canteens, so they cannot buy alcohol, etc.
That's a great idea that would work. I know somewhere, but I have an idea for him if he wants. But
We work at universities.
Yeah.
To replace the help, taking a help fund, and we worked on a concept with my brother, but we did it on a
Decentralized.
distributed. We wanted to come
Not
up
on
with a blockchain. and the idea fell short because my brother was like, let's not use the computations blockchain is using. Let's come up with something. Started doing his research and he ended up, I know this is a tangent, and he was like, we'll use prime numbers. I'm like, finally, can we start working on the code? After a few weeks, you know what? Someone is using prime numbers as well. You need to come up with something else.
Something different.
Not something new. But the concept was, when you get your help loan, you could use it to buy a TV. You could use it to buy clothes.
Yeah.
You could not use it for your books.
Partying,
So we're supposed to lock the money within the education system and have it being trackable.
Yes, that was almost the same concept. Lock the money so that can only be used at the school level. And also, since kids don't have smartphones and they're also not allowed to have one, you can't send them money directly. So when the schools closed, and now it was, I don't know, was it 8 months? So the guy, Brian, came up with a pivot. So the parent had the app, which will track the expenses, and they could do several things in there. I was like, why don't we build an EdTech component in there? And now the kids the parents can give the kids the phones to learn. Yeah, so we partnered with a content provider, and then the first part was just exam revision. So you take an exam, it auto marks it and tells you the marks you got, then you can retake the paper, so and so forth, and then it was to grow into more of the EdTech space. So that was interesting for candidates who had to prepare
for exams.
For exams, so there was that doing very quick tests and knowing whether you're good or not. So there was opportunity there during pandemic because now teachers were not available. Now the question was, now after the pandemic, do you still need it? Would EdTech be a component of education going forward? To me, I think for the exam revision, that's a very very small, but that's technology can do that very well. Very effectively. But now for general learning, I still like physical books, sit down and read.
But that's you. What about Michael? Do you like reading physical books?
Audiobooks, because I'm challenged with dyslexia. Let me start.
You're dyslexic. You could get funding for that.
Yeah, I could get funding.
I'm just saying, hi, I'm Michael, I'm dyslexic.
But also,
I used to enjoy, I do have a few books which I'd read page to page. For me, it's slower. I'm now used to audiobooks at speed 2 or 3.
What?
Yeah, and I actually remember it, because even whenever we have this book club, then people are talking about the book. I actually have the author's voice in my head. It's a bit faster. But I have that.
It really is.
But I also love listening to audio.
That's one thing I can listen to podcasts.
And me, I'm a learner I do by learning. I'd rather do things and then learn as I'm doing versus either listen or
no, so okay, this is just on knowledge consumption. I'd have to listen. But because of the industry I work in, you have to have the practical skill. You have to see something being done, try it, fail at it, and then repeat it. Because I love the way, whenever I have issues with code, if you go to Stack Overflow, it's a simple fix.
Yeah.
Fixed. Because I'm working on the project that I'm working on, and there's an avatar where you can edit an avatar, just a game.
Oh, cool.
It was working fine. I updated my Windows. It stopped working. The day I'm supposed to show it off to people, it's not working.
You know what your problem is, Windows?
You won't believe the solution I found online.
What is it?
Install Malwarebytes, run the scan. It will find 2 files or no files. After that, uninstall Malwarebytes, you're fine. there is no explanation beyond what Malwarebytes has to do with the Unity engine that brings all of that together. And that the amount of time I spent cracking my head to figure out that problem, and that one statement.
Knowledge transfer.
That knowledge transfer, and then I had to go like dig in and figure out, get some more knowledge on my own. That's the kind of learning I like. Then the audiobooks is for history.
Okay, gotcha. Cool, awesome. So yeah, bringing it home. I think I mentioned there's different mediums of technology that are used, and I think we are a startup. We review startups. I know Chris, you mentioned BRCK and eLimu, so maybe we can talk about that. I don't think that ever had much impact. And then we'll also look at mShule, which is advanced technology on SMS. And then there's also Eneza, which also does SMS, web, apps. And again, it's more on like the content and providing knowledge to the person who's using it.
Yeah. So BRCK was or still is a hardware company. I think they started by creating routers, and then they pivoted into creating rugged pads. And then they partnered with eLimu, was a content company that was creating content for, I can't remember, up to 14 years old. And then now they put all that together, and the idea was to go to far-flung schools which don't have access to electricity, books, and then have these tablets given.
Actually, they were solar-based, I think so they could actually charge them.
So there was a whole thing, I think I can't remember the name. Cool. It was a kit.
Yeah. It's a backpack, I remember it.
Yeah.
So actually they had something that looks like a box.
It used to fit on a bag.
Mm-hmm. And then it had arrays of pads put in there.
Oh,
so
cool.
when you keep the pads in that box, they charge.
Oh,
So the only thing you have to charge is that box. So you can take that box away and then charge it some far place and then bring it back, and then
cool.
Charge the tabs, the pads.
Yes, every time you store the pads in the evening, then you can they get charged. Yeah. And then I think there's some other interesting components they had in there. So like if every child has the pads in class, the teacher can ask, because the teacher can see. So you can ask, hey, Peter over there, what's the answer to this? And then send the instructions straight to that.
Yeah, that one you can't help of a teacher has asked a question and then you
But
start
then
looking at your book.
But do you feel, with that example, let's go back to, we're digitizing things that maybe shouldn't be digitized. So
But
in
I
a
think
classroom,
a large classroom, imagine if there's like...
If it's a lecture hall, if it's a lecture hall
7,
of 200 students, yes, a classroom of 30 students, the teacher is there struggling. Where is Chris on this list? Send a question to Chris. The teacher, he or she...
But I think like these schools are very large.
So
I mean,
I think it was just an extra component added, a good to have, not a must have. Yeah. And I think at some point you could track what the child. So the teacher had the master pad, and the teacher can see what the child does, if they're given any work, how fast they complete the work, and it allows the teachers to understand the kids better. So I think it was a great initiative. I think, especially given that those areas were not well served. There were some hardware issues, but I think the concept was great. The idea was to have the Kenyan government have them as the laptop project. That was the first entrepreneurs. That was the whole sell for it. Now, when the Kenyan government did not go with that solution, it became very expensive.
Oh no, I can imagine.
To serve that, so there was need for like a funding partner, like a donor agency to come and do that. I don't think that fell through. I think that came through, so somehow it fizzled. But I think it was great.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
It's similar to another EdTech I consulted for when the pandemic had started. So what they were trying to do was a really brilliant engineer, and he was thinking, these laptops the government wants to bring need electricity, need internet connectivity, they need a lot.
Did the laptops ever come? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
But his solution was, you can't change curriculum, especially that's below tertiary level.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to spend time digitizing it. He wants to build the infrastructure. In this case, similar to the pads, he had a box, a well-engineered box that was able to transmit a short range of Wi-Fi. It was basically a server with the content inside, and you would push. And you could then take this box to where there's electricity and then charge it.
Oh,
And then
cool.
charge the devices, the pads associated to this device, then bring it back to the schools and hinge. Then it will work as its own Wi-Fi substation, and the school would have its Wi-Fi. When it's done, if content needed to be updated, like you'd now go to one of the biggest schools there, maybe that had power and internet, and then content to be flooded in. It was a very nice concept that solved the infrastructure problem, because we do have an access problem.
Yeah.
And sometimes changing the channel, you decide, okay, we can't teach on web and app, let's teach on SMS. There's a lot of learning that is lost. I don't think SMS as a means of learning is the best form of learning. It's the best alternative due to maybe a lack of, to solve the access problem. But what BRCK was doing and what this other party were doing could solve that access issue and then only leave SMS for something like revision. Because SMS is supposed to be quick to consume. I can't imagine a Form 3-year-old, a Form 3 student learning these chemical bonds in chemistry via SMS.
Quick school right there.
How would you even draw those chemical bonds with SMS? I know people get clever with SMS.
Maybe they're not doing complex things. Because I used one of them, I think it was just like, but this one was solving for maths, like solve this plus this. I'm just like, yeah.
You mentioned something that they started to stay away from curriculum, and something that's hit my mind. Bridge. The Kenya government shut down, Bridge.
Yeah.
They shut down Bridge because, Bridge was like a school for poor people.
Yeah.
Consider it that. So they're taking students who are not going to school. Like, let's say you go to a place like Dandora, Kibera, Dagoretti, where people don't earn a lot, and you have students who don't go to school. So they take those kids, put them to class.
What students are these? Are they like high school or like after high school?
No. This is like from primary school.
Yeah, but I thought it's supposed to. I mean, we have
it's actually
compulsory education.
It is. That's what the law says.
They took for granted.
No, first of all, you go to certain schools, you find one class.
You have to pay some,
First of all, that class has 100 students.
Yeah.
Some sit outside the window. Then you still have to buy a uniform, right? There's a couple of things that you have to buy.
Administrative things.
There's still some fees you pay. So some families are too poor that small fee.
They can't.
So the kids stay at home. So Bridge took all these kids, put them in class, and started teaching them like a curriculum. The Ministry of Education came in and said, this curriculum is not vetted, and closed down all the schools. And people were arguing like, these kids already don't go to school.
Yeah, this is better than
But yes,
and it's probably knowledge transfer is what they were.
Yeah.
They're going like, maybe let's equip them with something that would help them. So some people are arguing online that, so you'd rather them not learn anything than learn.
I think the idea is the kids are supposed to go to school either way. So I think the government is supposed to facilitate that.
Yeah, but the government doesn't pay for everything.
Okay.
It doesn't.
So for me, mShule is the SMS AI-based learning platform, advanced learning platform.
Yeah, how do you do advanced? You guys are the ones in AI.
So-
How do you do advanced AI on SMS?
So
Can you tell me?
I have two schools of thought on this.
Okay.
One is the bashing school of thought, and where it's known 40% of startups who claim to use AI don't use AI.
I think higher, but
Yeah. I'm being nice.
okay.
The 40%. The other half of me that thinks maybe they have some
Like
form of
rudimentary,
AI, whether it's a basic decision tree or something very rudimentary, and then they push the content out to students. But I feel on SMS, that channel is just the content out on SMS and having an AI at the back. How well is that AI structured that it takes all that knowledge and convert it, because SMS is limited to something so short.
120 characters.
And then push that out. So I find it difficult for it to be AI. I'm thinking else if, and the student on the other side is press 1, press 2, press 3. So we are back to a very rudimentary decision tree.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
Chris,
think it's for short content again.
SMS and AI technology, mShule.
I think to his point, delivering anything via SMS is very hard unless it's a dedicated learner who really wants to learn. The way I can see AI being embedded is the same thing with tracking learning paths.
Okay.
So if I start putting in certain things, the AI can redirect me into other content so that it's not a static content that after 1, I get to 2, after 2, get to 3. So
Okay, yeah.
if you can figure out that this is my learning path and redirect me to that, even through SMS, then I think that's okay, but it need...
That's like an open world game. Instead of a linear structure, you're free to go and figure out and come back.
For example,
and move
let's say there's a machine learning model at the back that understands different types of learners.
Yeah.
Right? So you start by being asked certain questions. If you answer A, you'll
in a
follow this
certain
path.
way.
If you answer B, you'll follow this path.
So
because-
still via SMS.
yeah, via SMS.
So who
But-
regulates whatever information is being put on the SMS?
You see, I think
That's a
education...
good point, especially if it's an AI that's deciding.
Yeah, that's
if there's
kinda
no man in the middle if it's not supervised, the AI didn't do supervised learning, and there's no part of the ethics of AI having human oversight as a man in the middle, then of course there can't be, because the SMSs will take forever to come.
In this case, if you apply it in people with already learning disabilities, then no one would ask you who's making the decision, because if the AI can just improve your learning capabilities by a certain amount, that's better than
not learning.
nothing. Then the problem is, like, if you apply it to just a normal person who operates okay, and like, why are you directing me to these directions? And that comes under whole the machine learning, AI, ethics on that. I believe people should be exposed to everything.
Yeah.
Let
Knowledge.
them tap to what resonates to
Interests.
them.
Yeah.
Cool. So that was mShule, and then we have Eneza. I believe Eneza is doing more than just SMS. They have web application, and as well as a mobile app, and as SMS as well. Pretty much, I don't see an issue with that. Any of your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I think for them, once you have to take your curriculum to Ministry of Education, I believe,
Yeah.
and then they have to give it a stamp of authority.
Yeah.
What I don't know is how to do CBC on.
Actually, that's a good point. Like, how are they doing it online now?
CBC, because I understand CBC is supposed to have a lot of
Practical,
activities on that. So in this case, you create your content according to guidelines by the Ministry of Education, make it available on web, make it available on app, make it available to SMS. Then parents then can subscribe for their kids to access that content, either weekly, daily, for that. So I think that's a very honest, simple startup.
It's the lowest hanging fruit and the simplest way to get it without being too disruptive, because you're just taking what's pre-approved by the ministries, converting their content to be something accessible on web and app, because then again those two would obviously feel different. And then after that, whatever activities, because the current curriculum does have a lot of out of classroom activities, maybe just have it as something sent to their parents that your child needs to do A, B, C, D, E, F. Because I think having it as a standalone platform for just the children doesn't serve. It serves for knowledge. I don't see it serving for education as it currently exists. Because with education, there has to be the student and the teacher and a form of evaluation.
Yeah.
So I think if they're doing all of that, then they are digitizing that learning process as far as it can be digitized, because not everything should be digitized.
Okay, cool.
I had one question. The fact that you said, who's the target market? You see, the idea is we're talking about accessibility of education, right? Especially in Kenya or in Africa, yeah. So, parents are being told to subscribe to us whatever amount. And are these platforms just trying to raise money as most other startups? Are they just trying to make money out of students?
Could be, but
it's a business. At the
end of the day.
The best impact that I would give for an EdTech platform is probably one where its curriculum, and maybe now talking about the ones in the tertiary level, because the ministry really doesn't have any, build your own curriculum, build your own course. So you can do that for those ones. When they have such a significant impact in the knowledge transfer and in the skills that they create for the learners on that platform, that someone saying that I learned from this platform actually holds weight.
Yeah.
I think that's when you say, not just as a business, but now you have social impact. You're now actually doing beyond making profits. With anything below the tertiary level, it's purely, there's a need for, we have a Vision 2030, all the whole world wants to go digital.
Everyone become a coder.
Everyone becomes all these kids are now products. So
there's a question you'd ask, like, who creates the curriculum, who decides
Yeah.
what goes into the curriculum, what's right or wrong? General answer, it's the governments, right?
Yeah.
And one of the most interesting things, like, I have one kid on GCSE, I have another kid on CBC.
Yeah, CBC, yeah.
And you can see the difference.
So who's better? Tell us.
My own opinion,
Yeah.
I think GCSE is better. I think also, okay, it also depends with the school,
Yeah.
right? So it's a smaller class, like
Yeah.
15 kids, so there's much more intimate learning. They have a lot of extra materials that they have. You know, for us, there's a book you have to buy for Malkiat Singh. This is what is recommended, and to them they have like a variety of books. Even what they come home with, it's a lot. So I feel like they have a broader. And then if you compare year 1 and class 1, the content is very different. It's very different. It's like year 1 for GCSE, it's like year 2 or year 3 for CBC. And it tells you what, because GCSE came from the British government, yeah? So it tells you what they tend to have a more world view of what they teach. True. For us as a Kenyan, we're only concerned with what happens in Kenya, perhaps, PZ and UG. But I find that, so each government decides what's important to them, and they decide what the kids have to learn.
You said something on intimacy, on how having a smaller class and bringing the intimacy, and I just wanted to say something small on that. EdTech startups can actually try and solve that problem of intimacy through gamification. When you play a game alone, you feel a connection with a game. There's that intimacy. Yeah. So don't just content paste. If they could do a bit of gamification, they could improve the intimacy.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so we're just going to give like an overall rating. BRCK and eLimu. What is your take on it? I think you already said you...
So out of 5, I think I'll give BRCK a 4 because of the problem they're trying to solve. I think they had a very good approach to it. They never hit the nail, so that's why I'm knocking down the one. For that's BRCK and eLimu, right? Okay.
For BRCK and eLimu, I'll also give them a 4. I feel the only thing which let them down was that they couldn't sustain the project, but it was a very good project. So I'll give them a 4.
I would give them a 4.5. I mean, because of the reasons that you guys have given, but also the only reason why they were not able to actualize their goal, maybe because of government and, such things. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And then mShule, which is doing AI technology via SMS.
I feel like I'm on the fence in this. Because, I want to say AI, I like not specific problem. And let's call it machine learning. Okay. What specific problem are they solving for the learner? If they have a specific problem they've narrowed down and they figure out the machine learning can solve that and SMS is the best delivery method, then I'll give them like a 3. If they've not figured out specific problem to solve, then I'll knock them down to a 2.
So kind of like a 2.5.
Yeah, like a 2.5.
2.5. Cool.
I'll put them at a 2, purely for the same reason. I'm not sure what problem they are solving, and so I'll give them a 1. Then I'll give them an extra 1 to get them to a 2, because if they're actually delivering content that is supposed to be short, purely revisional content, like it's a quick question and you need a quick answer, then I think they are solving. If that's the problem they're looking to solve, then that's it. And if the answer is there, if it's a question that has a known answer, then I don't understand why you need the machine learning and the AI. You're not going to predict my next text to you. I don't think you want to go that far. Today I'll wake up, ask a question in science because it's there on my textbook. Tomorrow I'm doing math homework. I write the question, send it to you, get the answer. So 2.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so in terms of transferring knowledge, I will give them a 1. But maybe in terms of revision, as you say, maybe a 2 or a 3.
So overall, sounds like a kind of a 2.5 for you.
Like even a 1.5. Yeah. Because I don't see how, what it's solving. And I don't see how you can learn with that SMS thing.
This is the first time you put
I know. Okay. Next one, Eneza.
So I think Eneza is... I like the basicness of it.
Yeah.
It's not covered in glitz and glamour. So I just just give them a 4. If that made impact that everyone is using it in the country, then that would be a 5. But I think it's a straightforward business, and I like that.
Awesome.
Give them a 3.5. One, I like their approach to just let's digitize what we can digitize. I would have given them a 4, but I will give them a 4 because of their design and how they've colored it and made it simple and made it very childlike. But I think they could go further and put in gamification. That would get them to a 4. I think once they do that, then they start piquing people's interest.
Yeah, okay. For me, I think I'll give them a 4 because for the sole reason of I think you can actually learn from the platform. Yeah.
Awesome, fantastic. So those are the reviews. Did we have any other last questions or anything else we wanted to talk about education? We can finish it off philosophically. I've learned so much. Okay, cool. There you have it. Speaking, education, technology, knowledge. I've learned a lot. A lot of knowledge has come to me just speaking down and just chatting through this. And I hope you have too. Don't forget to comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, Kwaheri.
Bye.
So I also had another epiphany, another parting shot. One is not enough. Actually, it's not mine. I stole it. But it's that education has a promise at the end, and knowledge is more about fulfillment and learning and just getting a lot of fulfillment from it. So there you have it. Enjoy. Spoken words. Knowledge. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. See you next year, and thanks for listening. Bye.
Peace out.